Kezia exhaled, pulse beating hard beneath her coat. The tension tightened around her, just as it did around Driftwood's men. The crew knew what would happen next, and now, so did she. There was no debate after that. Driftwood's men accepted their fate, and Alistair's dominance over the battlefield remained unchallenged. As the crew of the debt collector began preparations to leave, Kezia did not move from where she stood. She had forced herself into this mess, ripped through its center like a rogue tide, and now she must decide how to navigate the current she had stirred. Her choices suddenly felt dangerously limited. As the crew moved into action preparing to set sail, Kezia barely had time to adjust before Gunwale's hand caught her arm. "Walk," he ordered, his tone sharp and laced with agitation. Before she could protest, he led her towards the lower decks, away from the others, away from Alistair. She was not free from questions yet, and Gunwale intended to have them answered. Kezia's attempts to twist free were to no avail. She glared at Gunwale, but he didn't speak. His pace was swift and deliberate, boots thudding softly against the wooden steps as he pulled her down the narrow corridor to the heart of the debt collector. They slipped into the map room. The space was a vault of candlelight and inked smudged parchment, maps tacked in layers to the walls, and celestial charts bleeding into tide reports, some marked with sharp lines and a strange red sigil-like marking. Pinned notes fluttered in the draft of their entrance as Kezia finally wrenched her arm free, already calculating.
"I don't like being pulled,"
she muttered, dusting her sleeve.
"And I don't like ghosts walking onto my ship,"
Gunwale said. He folded his arms, the candlelight catching on the steel buckles of his coat.
"You weren't on Driftwood's vessel, and you weren't on the traders, which means you weren't invited."
Kezia's lips curled, not quite a smile.
"Does it matter? You've got your treasure, haven't you?"
Gunwale stepped forward, not threateningly, but with quiet weight. He looked over her.
"That's a lot of coin for someone without a flag."
He gestured towards her bulging satchels.
"You take it from Driftwood's desk."
She met his gaze without flinching.
"He didn't need it anymore."
Gunwale nodded slowly.
"That's not what I asked."
Kezia shifted her stance. The sharp edge of the table was behind her, the only exit blocked. Her eyes flicked over the room. Maps, ink pots, navigational tools scattered all around. No windows. Just Gunwale and the silence of strategy.
"You plan to gut me and redraw your charts with my blood, old man?"
"If that's the map to where you're from, maybe."
His eyes narrowed.
"You're not from Corsair. I know the dialect, the salt in your speech. It's Eastern tide, worn thin. You've been drifting for a while."
Kezia's gaze tightened.
"East is a wide reach. I wouldn't waste parchment mapping what's already sunken."
Gunwale stepped around her, circling the room as if pacing a storm's eye.
"The Regent's reach is tightening. We're searching for places unseen, places untouched. That kind of quiet's rare these days."
She watched him closely, now sensing the direction of his questions.
"What are you asking me?"
"I'm asking what you left behind," he said simply. "What ye remember."
Kezia hesitated. A very definite pause. A space between truth and a fabrication.
"I remember very little,"
she said finally, and there was no lie in it.
"I was an orphan. Grew up on the edge of something eastward, but I don't recall names. Faces blur together. Storms come clearer than people."
Gunwale didn't speak right away. He studied her. Not just what she said, but how she flinched from her own past. He leaned against the table, pointing casually to a scrawled map fragment, showing a crescent chain of eastern islands with one slashed out.
"Ever seen this place?"
Kezia didn't move. She didn't have to.
Didn't think so,
Gunwale said quietly. He straightened, brushing dust from his sleeve.
That's enough for me.
And just as he turned back towards the wall, the door opened. Alistair Morningstar stepped inside, brushing hair from his face. His presence was immediate, heavy. His eyes found Kezia with the same unreadable intensity as before, like he was deciding whether she was a squall worth weathering, or one to steer around. Gunwale stepped aside with a slight nod.
She's not from Corsair,
he said.
But she's come through storms. Maybe she brought one with her.
Kezia's fingers rested lightly on the hilt of her belt dagger. Not a threat, just a habit. Alistair came into view of the candlelight without ceremony, his expression still quiet, his eyes skimming the scattered charts before they settled on the woman standing among them. He had said nothing at first, and then, with a faint tilt of his head,
"Now I remember your face."
Kezia didn't flinch, but she didn't smile either. The memory had never left her. She just hoped he hadn't held on to it quite as clearly, or quite as thoughtfully. Alistair came closer, not with the weight of authority, but with the natural pace of a man who didn't chase answers. They came to him. He leaned lightly on the edge of Gunwale's table, letting the soft rustle of the maps settle around him.
"There was a deal back in Corsair."
His voice was gentle, conversational, almost casual.
"Regent Silver bartered off a smuggler in the southern quarter. I was trading it for a faster cutter. Wanted something small, quiet, something that might outrun the mistakes waiting behind the next crest."
His eyes never left her.
"I waited that night by the shallows, wind sharp, but the water still. The ship appeared, sails half trimmed, silent. Only it didn't dock. It just coasted right past."
He paused.
"You were standing at the helm. Captain's hat too big for you. Moonlight behind your shoulder. You tipped it at me and tossed a coin across the water."
Kezia finally let herself breathe.
Piracy's gone up in value, gent. You might try it sometime.
She echoed. He nodded once.
"That was the line."
A flicker of something, humor maybe, glinted in his expression. It was not mockery, just the way he held on to the moments that mattered, even the ones that weren't flattering. Kezia stepped forward slightly, tightening the straps of her satchel.
Call it repayment, then,
she said, placing it on the table beside him. The coin-heavy satchel landed with a satisfying, weighty thud.
Driftwood owed you. I collected. Thought it might settle things.
She glanced between him and Gunwale.
In fact, I'd like to renegotiate the coin for a place aboard.
She let the words hang like smoke. Alistair didn't answer immediately. He turned to look at the charts behind him, but he was still listening, always listening. When he finally looked back at her, it was not suspicion in his eyes. It was understanding, the kind that didn't demand confession, but recognized the shape of what's left unsaid. Gunwale met Alistair's gaze. He gave a subtle nod of interest rather than approval. Alistair spoke at last, still quiet.
"Aboard our ship, value isn't just measured in gold."
He stepped closer to the satchel, nudging it slightly with a finger.
"This spends quick, but where we're going..."
He let the thought trail. Kezia raised an eyebrow, masking the stir of unease. Alistair smiled at her knowingly.
"Our version of piracy runs on more than coin. Loyalty, trust, integrity. Pricey things, I know. Might be a little rich for your taste."
He walked past her, giving her space that felt oddly heavier than when he'd entered.
But if you're here to learn, you're welcome to stay. If you're here to run, well,
He gestured toward the map table without looking back.
you'll find all the exits are clearly marked.
And with that he was gone, leaving Kezia in the warm, flickering lamplight of the map room, surrounded by ink and questions, wondering for the first time in a long while if maybe the value she had placed on freedom had blinded her to a different kind of wealth.